Okay, super. I think we still have a few people that are coming into the room, but welcome to the Canvas Home webinar. I am Jennifer Kressel with Occipital, and I'm pleased to welcome you all here today. And I'm going to pass it over to Greg Bartow. He is with Business Development here at Occipital, and he's going to lead us off. Thanks again for joining us.
Yeah, yeah. Just to reiterate, thanks again for joining us today. We're pretty excited about being able to finally talk about Canvas Home. I'm like Jen said, I'm Greg Bartow. I lead the business development side of things here at Occipital for Augmented Home, and my co-presenter is Anton.
Hey everyone, my name is Anton Yakubenko. I'm VP Product at Occipital, in particular in charge of development of Canvas Home app.
Great. So just to set the stage for what you can expect on this presentation, I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about the history of Occipital, some of the products we've already brought to market over the past 10 years, and then we'll show you a live demo of the Canvas Home app. After that, we'll discuss use cases that our customers have been using it with during the private beta, and then we'll talk about how you can get early access and finish it up with a Q&A. If you've got a question during the webinar, there's a button down at the bottom of your screen. If you go ahead and click that and type your question in, we'll see it on our end. If we don't answer it during the live portion of the webinar, then we'll be sure to answer it at the end. Cool. All right, so this is a video you've probably already seen. It's a teaser of Canvas Home that we released back in February. Canvas Home is an app that you can download to your iPhone, scan the interior of a room in about 60 to 90 seconds and collect all the dimensional data of that space. Once you have that data, you can submit it to us, and then we can convert it into a number of 2D and 3D formats. One of the cool things about Canvas Home is, well, the biggest differentiator is you don't need any additional hardware. All of the scanning is happening on the phone itself, just using the onboard camera. So going back to 2007, this is when Apple first introduced the first generation of the iPhone. The very next year, Occipital was founded with the idea of giving the power of computer vision to these mobile devices. The first app that we released was Red Laser. Maybe you're familiar with it. You take a picture of a barcode, you get relevant product information from that. It's been downloaded well over 20 million times, and in 2010, it was actually acquired by eBay. Also in 2010, we released 360 Panorama. This is one of the most powerful and popular 360 Panorama apps on the App Store. It's been downloaded over 8 million times, and we processed tens of millions of photos from it. In 2013, we released the world's first 3D sensor built specifically for mobile devices, the structure sensor. The idea behind it was we wanted to give mobile devices the ability to see the world in 3D. At the time, it was one of the most successful Kickstarters for any technology product. It's raised over, or at the time it raised over $1.3 million. So once we give mobile devices the ability to see the world in 3D, it really opens up a lot of other applications. One that we thought was very interesting was the ability to scan the inside of homes. So we built Canvas. Canvas is an app you can download on the iPad, and when paired with a structure sensor, you could go in, scan a room in about a minute, and get all the dimensions. Once you're done scanning, you can pull the dimensions directly from the iPad, or you can submit it to us through our Scan To CAD service, and we can convert it to a 3D model like SketchUp or Revit, give you a 2D floor plan, and in some cases, actually create a custom measurement report. So Canvas today is used by thousands of customers across all over the world. Two of the biggest use cases that we've seen are visualization and quoting. But across our entire customer base, we see a lot of different use cases, some of which we're going to be getting into detail later on in this presentation. So right now, I'm going to give it to Anton. He's going to talk a little bit more about the technology that powers Canvas Home. And yeah, Anton, you want to take over?
Yes, sure. Give me a moment, I will share my screen. You should be able to see my screen now. So yeah, Greg, thank you very much for the introduction to the Occipital history, which step by step actually led to Canvas Home. So at Occipital, we believe that each space and especially each home deserves a digital twin, its 3D model. And to enable this, we need to eliminate a barrier for entry, this necessity to have some special hardware to do the 3D capture. And over the years, we have built something unique that allow us to finally deliver this 3D capture capabilities to regular smartphones, which you already have in your pocket. In particular, we have built our proprietary SLAM technology, which stands for simultaneous localization and mapping. It's basically the technology which allows us to understand how your phone, how your device moves through the space, its position and orientation at each moment of time. And we have developed it to be like a very flexible, so it can work not only with depth cameras such as structure sensor, but with regular cameras you have in your ordinary phones. Secondly, we have accumulated enormous amount of data through Canvas. Many scans of spaces, as well as the associated CAD models of those spaces. And it allowed us to train machine learning algorithms to extract geometry information from regular images. But we're not holding this data all to ourselves. We're partnering with the research community, for example, with the Technical University of Munich, where we share the data which users opt in to share with the research community for a small discount. And that has already led to some great development in science and actually moves this whole area further. So we have teased Canvas Home in February, and actually the prototype for this app dates 2 years ago. We started to actively work on this since the mid last year. And as you know, like recently, this whole COVID-19 situation has happened. And we saw that many of our Canvas customers who were previously going into homes to do their like in-home scanning to capture measurements and like 3D models were in the lockdown. They cannot do any business. That's why they literally begged us to accelerate our efforts with Canvas Home to give them an app which they can share with their customers, with their homeowners, so the homeowner can do the scan and the business can get the 3D scan or any other information extracted from this 3D scan. So they can do business remotely, do business online. And we saw this trend even before the COVID, but this pandemic situation really accelerated everyone's desire to go remote. So we made like a tremendous effort, and actually in the end of March, we have deployed our app to one of our existing Canvas customers so they can continue the business. And during these several months, we worked closely with our existing customers to polish the app. And now we're proud to present it to the world and give early access to you guys. So first of all, we have gave it a name. It's called Canvas Home. And now let's go to the fun part. I would be happy to do like a live demo, which is usually pretty risky, but nonetheless, it's very cool. So give me maybe 30 seconds. So I will switch to my phone. So stick with us, and I will share the screen from my phone in about 30 seconds. All right. Canvas Home is now available in the App Store. You can easily find it if you can just type Canvas Home. And the app is still in invite-only private beta. It means that anyone can download the app, but you will need the access code that we will provide to you, and we'll let you know how you can get your personal access code in the end of the webinar. So I will open the app, and that's what you will see in the beginning. So I will enter just like the promo code here. And when you open the app, you see that you're suggested to view a video tutorial, which we strongly recommend to do because it's only
to begin, go to the
minutes,
center of the room.
but it shows you the whole process and educates you how to do like a good scan. I will skip it for now because I will be showing a similar thing live. So first of all, I will show you just like in real time with a regular capture speed, how you can do the scan. And then we will go over the smaller details. So I create a new scan. I allow access to the camera. I go to the middle of the room. I press the scan button. Then I do like a couple of special motions to initialize our tracking. And then basically I stand on the same spot and I spin around myself and I just paint the area around me. So you can see this like checkerboard pattern. That's like the anticipated area that you probably want to capture. So I keep rotating until I see this loop closure UI. So I align this like slice of pizza and we automatically apply the loop closure and basically you are done. So after that, you immediately see kind of what you have captured in this like sketch mode, which just shows you the 3D points and 3D lines that we have captured during this process. And then I can say process, enter my email. It will go to the cloud. It will be processed in the cloud for around 15 minutes. And then you will get the result that you can view right in the app, as well as via through a couple of other means. So for us not to wait this like 15 minutes at the moment, I will go to like another copy of the same app, and it will be the same room which I have scanned recently. So you can see how the result looks like. So I can see the scan in this like first person 360 mode. It's not just like a panorama, it's an actual mesh. So you can move through it, not only look around. I can also see the space in 3D, as well as a 2D floor plan. And I can take measurements in any of those modes. For example, I can click this wall and this cabinet. We automatically detect that you want to measure between parallel planes, and you can get a pretty accurate measurement. And you can also share the link to the viewer, so you can view it online via the web browser and share it with somebody, which I'll show later. Okay, so that's in very brief what we can do. And if you have seen, the capture process is super easy and super fast. It takes you usually less than 1 minute. So now I'd like to show you more details, in particular, more like technological details. So let's do a new scan now. So first of all, we assume that the capture process is not when you're wandering around the room, but when you stand on the same spot and just spin around yourself. So we ask you to go to the middle of the room. If there is something in the middle of the room, that's definitely fine if you stand somewhere close to the middle, but you don't need, to jump on your bed or to sit on your kitchen island. So I start in the middle of the room, and then we start scanning. So we use our proprietary SLAM technology for tracking. So we do not use AirKit. And the reason for this is that our proprietary SLAM has been designed for scanning applications versus augmented reality applications. So it gives us more control over the experience as well as better accuracy. Plus, we can reprocess this data in the cloud to get even better results. And to initialize our tracking, you need to look at some detailed area, for example, like a corner of the room, a floor, or something like this versus a blank wall. But if you look at the blank wall, it's also not a problem. We'll let you know. So, for example, I'll come here. I will say that I'm trying to initialize, but it understands that the data is not enough. So either there are not enough detail or you're not moving too far away, like left and right. And as soon as you get to the right spot, we automatically recognize the space and you can continue scanning. Okay, so let's move on. I will do like a new scan. And this like motion, circular motion, that helps us to understand better accuracy, better scale of the scene. So we don't have like a depth camera here. That's why we can estimate scale mostly from the IMU, inertial measurement unit, and a particular accelerometer. So this like special motion allows us to understand the better scale of the scene. Okay, so now let's start scanning. I'd like to stress that we try to make the experience really consumer friendly. So like, you know, any homeowner or any user can do it, even if they have no knowledge about 3D or whatsoever. For example, if I move too fast, the app will let me know to slow down. If I walk too far away from the area where I have started capture, the app will let me know to go back. And if I point to some like blank space, for example, the ceiling, you can see this like tracking lost message. And that's like totally fine. It means that there is just not enough details in the current view for us to robustly understand your position and orientation of the space. But as soon as you get back to any previously captured area, we automatically relocalize yourself and you can continue scanning. So as you continue scanning, we will let you know that you have approached kind of the half of the scene, so you can continue scanning to close the loop. And you might not notice, but there is like some small drift accumulated when you scan. So like the lines, for example, on the cabinet, from the end of the sequence and from the beginning of the sequence, they actually do not perfectly align with each other. That's why we perform this so-called loop closure in real time. So when I align these two images, the loop closure is applied, and you can see that the lines now from the end of the sequence and beginning of the sequence become aligned. So I will switch to the scan that I have done in the past and show you what you can do after you get the scan ready. So once again, you get it ready in about 15 minutes. It might take a little bit longer. It just depends on the capacity of our service in the cloud and how many scans are being processed at the moment. So you can see the space in these like 3 modes. Once again, this like first person mode or 360 mode, it's not an image, it's an actual like 3D model. So you can see like the whole parallax and the whole like geometry, how it changes when I move or zoom in and zoom out from the space. I can see this in 3D from any viewpoint. I can rotate the scan, I can move around it, and I can zoom in and zoom out. And I can also see the floor plan mode, which is super helpful if, for example, you want just on site to approximately estimate square footage. So in each of this mode, you can actually take measurements. And if I click, for example, like just 2 points, I get this measurement. And you can change whether you'd like to use the metric system or the imperial system in settings. And we also automatically recognize if you try to measure the distance between parallel planes. So if I click on this plane and this plane, we automatically recognize this. So you can measure a more accurate distance between the planes. Or I can switch to points and you see that the distance might change in this case. Okay, so you can also add annotations here. So for example, I can say that this is like a guess range by GE. And these annotations are synced to our web viewer. So you can add annotations to your space on site and then share it with somebody so they can view your notes to the space remotely. For example, you can say, I want to paint this wall in blue, or I need to repair this particular appliance, and so on. And then you can share it to the viewer. So I can copy link, and I will go to my web browser, and I will copy paste the link here. And I can see this scan in the web browser. So our web viewer is based on WebGL technology. So it doesn't require you to install any plugins or download any apps. It works in the absolute majority of devices, both mobile and desktop, and the absolute majority of browsers. And basically, you can do very similar things here in the viewer. So you can see the space in like first-person mode, in 3D, and in 2D. And you can also extract measurements. And measurement tool in the viewer is even more advanced. So if I click this tool and I press and hold, give me a second. Yeah, so if I press and hold, I can select very precise measurements using this magnifier without spending time on zooming in and zooming out. And it also has the same tool for measurements between planes. All right, so let's go back to the app. So as you have heard from Greg, in Canvas, we have this like Scan To CAD service. And it allows you to convert your 3D scan to a professional editable CAD model, which you can use in third-party 3D software such as SketchUp, Revit, AutoCAD, and so on. And we have actually linked this Scan To CAD service to Canvas Home as well. So I can press the Scan To CAD button, and I can select the right format. So we support SketchUp in several formats, Autodesk Revit, and a 2D floor plan, both as like as a vector image as well as a raster image. So I will select SketchUp for now. The price depends just on the format. And we deliver the result usually within 2 business days. So I will click next, I will enter my email, and I'm gonna place the order. So the scan will be uploaded, and then it will be processed within 2 days, so you can get the CAD model, and then you can view this CAD model in the viewer, or you can also download it and use in third-party solutions. So let me switch back to my laptop computer, and I'll show you a few more cool things. Yeah, so when you send your scan to processing, in about 15 minutes, you'll receive an email from us that your result is ready. And in this email, you can find a link to download the scan. So it's delivered in the OBJ format, so you can easily input it into any other 3D software. You can view it in the app, like I showed you, or you can view it in the viewer and share it with someone. So you will see this like link to the viewer. And we'll see just the same scan. So you can do just the same things in the web as I have shown you on the mobile device. Also, if we have the CAD model, it will be shown in the view as well. So this is the scan, and this is the CAD model that we get out of it. So this process, while the scan is generated fully automatically, Scan to CAD process does involve some manual work. So that's why it takes a couple of days and costs you something. But we extract like a pretty detailed 3D model. So it includes all the major architectural details like walls, floors, ceilings, fireplaces, anything else in your space, as well as other details such as like kitchen cabinets, appliances, light switches, power outlets, door frames, and so on. So this is like a design-ready file that you can use both for visualization purposes as well as for more efficient measurement purposes. So for example, I can do measurements here in the view as well, and it's even easier than to do it from this 3D scan because we have the like snap into lines, planes, and so on. So for example, I can measure from this line to this plane, and it will automatically recognize that I wanted to measure this like vertical distance. So what I have shown you was usually like a scan like of a single room. But if you want to scan the whole house, it's also possible. Right now, it's only possible if you order Scan to CAD service, but the ability to have like the merged scan is coming. But even now, you can scan just like each room separately and submit this like as a merge order. You will have this option in the app, and then we can create this like complete CAD model of your whole space. So you can recognize, for example, this very same kitchen, and I will hide this lines from other rooms. So this is the very same kitchen, but it has joined with like other rooms. For example, this is the room that I'm currently sitting in. This is like my home office. All right. So now let's go to and speak a little bit more about the fun stuff about the technology. So I'll go back to the slide deck. Yeah, so over the time, we have definitely improved on the quality of the 3D scans and the visual quality of scans. So last year, the scans had like, you know, a lot of holes and cracks and inaccurate geometry. When we demonstrated this earlier this year, it was already much better and more consistent. And now you can see that the result is much, much better. So the scans have become more consistent, less holes, more accurate and straight geometry. We also have improved on the accuracy side. So in the beginning of the year, on average, the measurements which we have extracted and compared them against some reference measurements from a tape measure or laser distance measure gave us around 10% error. And now it's on average around 5% error. What we are finding that it's usually enough for quoting applications because they allow you for some like flexibility. But when it comes to installation applications, you may need like a fraction of an inch accuracy, but you usually don't need this for all of the measurements. That's why our customers usually use Canvas Home for quoting and visualization applications. And before installation, they actually go inside to take a few key critical measurements for ordering materials and installation purposes. Moreover, we see how over time we can improve on the accuracy further. So it comes from multiple sides. On the one hand, it's just improving of our algorithms, how we use the visual and IMU data to extract better scale. We can also add reference measurements which a user can add, so we can optimize the scan accordingly, as well as utilize the new LiDAR camera that you have in the most recent iPad, which we actually support in Canvas, our professional app. And rumors say that the iPhone 12 coming this fall should also have the same LiDAR unit, which we will utilize for Canvas Home app. I'd like to show you a few other examples. All right. And I just, so you can scan actually like very different spaces, not necessarily just like rooms of homes. So for example, in this case, it's a larger commercial like lounge. And I would just go through like a few scans to show you a variety of things that you can do. So this is like a residential like living room or kids room. And here is how it looks from the first person view. Here is how it looks in 3D. And let me browse through a few more scans. This is like an art gallery. And it shows you like how various the use cases might be, not only related to home and home improvement. You can also capture something when you travel. For example, when you go to a museum. Just one more scan. So we're not limited, you know, just to square shaped spaces. If the space has a little bit more complex shape, that's totally fine. And we can fill in these like missing areas when we will be doing the CAD model. And this is actually a Pizza Hut restaurant. So you can scan like a huge variety of spaces. All right. So when you do like just a few scans, it's easy to manage them in your email or in your app. But when you do many of scans, or when your customers doing the scans for you, it becomes harder to do this just over the email. So recently we have introduced a new part of our product suite, which is our web portal, which allows you to access and manage your uploaded scans as well as your orders on the web. So you can see all your scans, you can download all the assets, and soon enough you will be able to order Scan to CAD right from this like web experience. It has been originally created for Canvas and like professional, like high volume Canvas users, but now it will be available for everyone using Canvas Home as well. All right, so what we have seen so far, we have seen the Canvas Home app, which is a very easy to use app for Revit capturing all spaces in 3D using a regular iPhone. We have connected it with our Scan to CAD service. So if you want to get more than a 3D scan, you can order a professional grade editable CAD file and use it in third-party solutions like SketchUp, Revit, and AutoCAD. You can also share, view, and measure the scan and CAD model remotely using Canvas Viewer and just a regular web browser without any other apps. And finally, you can manage your scans and your orders online using the Canvas portal. So with like Canvas Home app, we actually provide you a whole suite of products for you to completely utilize the value of 3D data. So we have talked about the cool stuff about the technology. Now let's talk about how this technology could be practically applicable to businesses. So at Canvas, we have been always mostly focused on like home improvement applications. That's why I'd like to talk through a couple of use cases related to home improvement. But after that, we can cover a much broader area of applications for Canvas Home. So one of our early beta customers for Canvas Home, which were previously using Canvas, is a company called Skylight. They're based in the Bay Area, and they do kitchen remodeling. So the way how they wanted to use the app appeared to be very similar to how many other companies in home improvement space want to use the app. So basically, they send the app to the homeowner. The homeowner does a scan, and because the app is so simple and self-guided, they actually don't need a lot of hand-holding with the consumer. The scan is submitted to us, and we create a CAD model or whatever is required for the business out of this scan and share it with the business customer. In this case, Skylight is using Revit. So we take the scan from the consumer, we convert it to a Revit file, and we share it with Skylight. And then their design or sales staff actually designs the space in Revit and prepares a quote, shares with the consumer without even being in the consumer space, without measuring the space on site. And as soon as the homeowner actually commits to the project, then they can dispatch a person to take this like precise measurements for the installation purposes. And the second case study that I'd like to talk about is by a company called Heirloom. They're based in South Africa, and they're like a large retailer for flooring, rugs, and accessories. So let me share a video which they like interview on the local television, which shows their use case. Then enjoy this like short video.
We are bringing the future of technology into your home. But Heirloom is known for its flooring, decor, and custom-sized rugs. David, you've briefly touched on how it works, but can you please talk us through exactly what you need, the steps that you need to take when using this home improvement tool on your phone?
The client will need an iPhone. Android is coming. The process then is pretty simple. There's a great tutorial on the app, and the process really takes 30-40 seconds to do. You track around the room by painting it. So you go up and down with your phone to capture the whole room. And when you come back to the starting point, it will help you close that loop. Mm-hmm. Once you've done that, you upload the files. We receive those files. It takes about 24 hours at the moment to reprocess things. We'll then be in touch with you to set up that virtual design space and to take you through a design process, to place the furniture as you require, look at your flooring options, look at your paint options. The products in the design software are real. They're not just dummy products that just to give you a feel. If there's a floor that you like in there, it will have a product code, and that will be accessible in South Africa. This then gets put through our design software. Our in-house designers, as well as some partner design firms, will host you in a design session that will outputs very quickly some fantastic visuals of your chosen design. And all of this is able to be shared with partner and affiliated contractors.
If you're looking for the perfect size rug or looking to renovate your home, Heirloom's new home improvement tool, Reno Station, lets you scan your space with your iPhone, capturing your room as a 3D model. All you have to do is simply upload, and you're one step closer to unlocking your dream space. Visit heirloom.co.za/Reno Station to find out more.
It all comes together in Heirloom's Reno Station, a world-class scanning tool that allows you to measure and digitize your home.
All right. Yeah, so Heirloom actually takes our technology one step further. They are not only using the 3D model for extracting measurements for quoting, but they're actually using the 3D model for designing the space and for visualizing changes, how the new furniture or the new finishes will look like in your room. And seeing is believing, so they actually see greater ROI, how people are more likely to buy if they see how the stuff looks like in their actual real space, not in some like imaginary floor plan. And one thing that is not that trivial in the values that we bring for Heirloom is ability for what we call spatial retargeting. Basically, imagine that you're working, for example, on kitchen remodeling, but since capturing takes only like a minute per room, maybe you can capture the bathroom as well, or maybe some other rooms, and then either during the same project or in the future, you can upsell the customer on the other projects or for other rooms. Or even if you are working, for example, in the living room and you are doing some design and you are selling some like furniture, and then the new collection of furniture arrives, you can visualize how this new stuff will look like in the exact customer space, because it actually costs you nothing, almost nothing, just like a minute per room to capture additional space, which you can use for upsell in the future. So if we go through like the major values that we usually bring to people in home improvement space, there are quite a few of those. The major one is eliminating the in-home visits. So if in the past you were required to go to the customer space and to take measurements, now the consumer can do it easily and very fast by themselves. And it eliminates friction on the consumer side as well, because they don't need to schedule the appointment, wait for appointment, and align their schedules with your schedule. So it allows the business to save time and money on in-person, in-home visits, as well as to win customers who for some reason cannot make it at a particular time, or are just not comfortable welcoming strangers in their homes at the moment, especially given this whole pandemic situation. The second big value is that you can capture all measurements very fast. So, for example, if you're doing kitchen remodeling, on average, it could take you 30 to 90 minutes to measure the kitchen, to extract all the measurements. In case of Canvas Home, that's like 1 or 2 minutes for the whole room. And then you can pull all the measurements on demand. Plus, even if you forgot to measure something on site, it's not a problem, because all the measurements are in the scan. You can extract them as you want. You can forget about like going back and revisiting the space if some measurements were missed. The third value is this actually ability to view the space remotely. It's kind of a teleportation machine where you can view the space remotely anytime from the comfort of your couch or a desk. You don't need to actually travel back and forth. Then for people who actually already use some CAD software, in the past they were required to take this like pen and paper measurements and manually model or draft in like 3D or 2D modeling software. In this case, we eliminate this friction for them because it's on us to extract this CAD model and provide it to the customer. And we have talked about this like spatial retargeting just now. And finally, a couple of, like I say, extra values is that 3D model helps people to build more efficient collaboration and to avoid miscommunication. So we heard from our customers that when they show their team member or their customer a 3D model and they say, we're gonna do, for example, this, we're gonna place this appliance here and show it in a 3D model, that's significantly more visual, and it's much easier for people to understand versus, for example, working from just like 2D floor plans or just like exchanging words. And finally, it just looks cool. So we heard from our customers that when they, tell the user that instead of spending an hour with them with a tape measure to provide them all the measurements remotely, they can download an app and in a minute do a scan of the space, which the consumer can also preserve. That just makes them look like tech savvy and improves their brand. All right, so we have talked mostly about the home improvement applications because that's something that we are mostly focused on, and that's our existing customer base for Canvas. But when we add ability to capture spaces in 3D for a regular smartphone, that opens up a myriad of applications beyond home improvement. So you can imagine that maybe you are moving from a home where you have spent your whole childhood and you want to preserve this as a memory so you can capture it in 3D. Or maybe you want to capture some space in 3D and place it in a video game or in a virtual reality or augmented reality application. Or maybe you want to capture the space just to share it with your designer to get some design ideas. Or maybe with your friends and family if you moved to the new space. Maybe you're installing like a home theater or a security system so you can use it for planning. Or maybe you're not interested in scanning homes at all. Maybe you are scanning a location for the next TV show or a mechanical room for some industrial applications. Or a crime scene for forensic applications, or maybe you're submitting an insurance claim for commercial real estate. So the applications, the stuff that we enable with this technology are endless. And we definitely want to learn from you what you are interested in scanning and how it could help you either personally or as a business. And that's why we're eager to open the access to our app now, even it's not yet like fully polished, and we know that like some rough edges here and there. So for everyone who visiting this webinar and who subscribed to the updates on canvas.io/next back in February, we will be happy to provide you early access to Canvas Home app. Because we want to learn from you how exactly you want to use this. We ask you to fill in like a very short form, and it will just take you a couple of minutes at this link bit.ly/getcanvashome. As soon as you fill in this form, we will shortly after, just in a few days, we will send you like your personal access code. And this access code will come with like a few freebies. So you don't need to pay anything to us in the very beginning to check this out. So our main goal here is like learning what you want to do with this technology. And if we see that you are maybe working in some particular vertical that is of the most interest to us, for example, more related to home improvement, maybe you're doing kitchen remodeling or bathroom remodeling, we would be happy to follow up with you to discuss like larger pilots. And we'll have like the Q&A session now, but if any of your questions would not be answered, or maybe in the future you will have a few other questions, don't be shy and drop us a line at support@canvas.io. And now let's switch to the Q&A session.
All right, we've got a good number of questions that have actually come in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the probably most common one to start with is just running through supported devices that Canvas Home will work on today. And one interesting one in particular there was, will this work on iPad today?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can speak to this. So at the moment, we support the absolute majority of relatively modern iOS devices. So it starts from iPhone 7, and we also support iPads back for, like, I believe maybe 4 years back from now. So yes, it works on both iPhones and iPads. You don't need any additional hardware. You don't need like structure sense or whatsoever. It works with your regular camera. And I also see like a question about Android support. So the Android support is coming, but you will need to wait a little bit before it will be live. So for now, we encourage you to check it out with available iOS devices. And just in case, I'd like to mention that if you have the latest iPhone with the ultra-wide camera, we utilize this as well. So in the app, you can switch between your regular and ultra-wide camera. And if you have this like wide vision camera, it actually is very beneficial. It allows our tracking to work more robustly, as well as allows you to capture spaces much faster. So if you have the iPhone 11 Pro with the basically iPhone 11 with the ultra-wide camera, definitely check it out. I see a question about SDK. Will there be an SDK to customize, develop something on top of our app? So we are open to providing the SDK, which will give you this functionality, basically, which will enable your applications to capture spaces in 3D, so you can build something on top of this. Most likely to provide, you know, this like great and consistent capture experience, the SDK will be limited to what you can change inside it, but the main benefit would be that you will be able to integrate this capture functionality right into your app and preserve your branding, and you won't need your consumers or your users to download like the second app for just for capturing.
Anton, there's a question here about the size of space that you can capture with Canvas Home.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's a great question. So basically, we rely on like movement and basically the distance between cameras to estimate depth, and that's why there are like some, because you are scanning from the same spot versus walking around the room, there is some limitation on the size of the space. I would say that the quality of geometry that we estimate starts to decrease when this like object or this geometry is further away than, I say, maybe 12 feet from your camera. It means that the size of the space, if you're standing in the middle of the room, if it's larger than, for example, 20 by 20 or 24 by 24, that becomes to be tricky. So I say that 20 by 20 is a good like sweet spot as a maximum size of the space that you can scan. But as I said, you can scan, you can do like multiple scans, and even they're not like stitched together at the moment. If you submit these multiple scans through our Scan To CAD service, we'll be able to join the CAD models together. So you can create a CAD model of a larger space or of even like the whole home with like multiple rooms. I would also say, if we speak about the technology, that the way how we extract geometry from basically video relies on two things. First of all, it's what is called photogrammetry. It's basically extraction of geometry from images based on that the images are taken from different viewpoints. So the same way as our stereo vision works, we can match or align the same objects in different photos and understand their depth, knowing how the photos are located using our proprietary SLAM technology. So photogrammetry is the first part how we extract the depth. At the same time, photogrammetry usually struggles when it comes to like areas which are blank. For example, a blank white wall, which are super often met in like interior spaces. That's why the second part of our solution is using machine learning, which actually understands the geometry even in these like textureless areas. So this like combination of proprietary SLAM, photogrammetry, and machine learning allows us to extract very consistent, pretty detailed, and pretty accurate 3D models out of regular video.
There are a number of questions around the differences in when you might use Canvas Home versus Canvas with structure sensor and with LiDAR.
Mm-hmm. Alex, do you want to answer on this one?
Yeah, I can answer that. So there's pros and cons. Canvas Home is obviously a lot more accessible in the sense that it will work on more devices as just an app download. One of the benefits that that allows for is that you can have a client download the Canvas Home app, scan their space, and send the data to you, which isn't really practical when there's extra hardware that's involved. The trade-off is that there's going to be a difference in accuracy. So where Canvas Home is going to be about 5%, Canvas with structure sensor or with the LiDAR sensor is going to be about 1 to 2%. We typically see more people gravitating towards the Canvas app for on-site scanning versus people that want to have their homeowners scan or just want an easy entry point where they have an iPhone and they just want to start scanning, gravitate towards Canvas Home. Mm-hmm. So one's not meant to replace the other by any means. They definitely have their different sweet spots and use cases.
Cool. Yeah, there's also a question about access to the 3D data and maybe some sample data. So yes, you get the full access to the 3D data. So basically, even if you don't order Scan to CAD and you just like process your scan, you automatically get the OBJ file, and you're free to download it, edit it, use it in any third-party solution. You own this data. In terms of like sample examples, we will prepare this like this set of sample examples, in particular some of those which I have shown today, and we're going to share it on our website or our FAQ pages.
There have been a couple questions about from Android users if they should be excited for an Android version or sad and jealous if not.
Yeah, I love this question. You definitely should be excited. Don't be sad, but also be patient. So if you have an option, maybe to like try it on somebody else's iPhone, definitely give it a try. And Android version is coming. But it's because of the variety of Android phones and because we need to work on a very deep level with the phones, with their cameras and use, it's not as easy as it seems. So we are working on this. It will be coming, but please be patient on that.
Mm-hmm. Questions about Scan to CAD and BIM and level of detail. So we target a LOD 200 standard for our Scan to CAD output. Canvas Home will more or less be the same in terms of the Scan to CAD results that you get. So fully compatible with exporting to Revit, SketchUp, 2D floor plans, those custom measurement reports. Scan to CAD functions more or less the same. The only difference is going to be the underlying scale accuracy of the data.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on that, we're always working on new formats. So if there's a format that we're not currently working in and you think would be valuable to you, please let us know. because we're always adding new ones.
Yeah, and to add to that, I saw one person asked about chief architect. That is on our radar. So I'll follow up with that person specifically about potentially beta testing that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I also see a couple of questions about like scanning larger spaces and merging meshes together. So that's coming. At the moment, you can scan larger spaces or spaces consisting of multiple rooms, scanning like each room at a time or doing multiple scans in one larger space, but we will not merge the scans at the moment. We'll only merge the CAD model of the spaces, but merging of the scans to have like a complete 3D scan of the space is coming. I also see like a few questions about the applications, I say not related to like extraction of dimensions, such as applications for BIM and applications for virtual tours. If we speak about BIM, basically building information modeling, so it could be applied if the accuracy is enough for the applications that you're looking for in this. So for example, we do support Revit as a output format. So the main question is just whether this accuracy is enough for your applications or not. And that solely depends on the application. So as I said, for example, Skylight is not using like BIM per se, but they're using Revit for like design and like management applications. And for them at this stage of like on the initial stage, this accuracy is enough. But I can see some cases where you might need like, I don't know, like 1/8 or 1/4 of an inch accuracy. And in this case, we're not there yet. You probably need like a more advanced scanning solution, such as a laser scanner. Speaking about the virtual tours, it's not our target application, but we would be curious to see whether you could apply our technology to this as well. So we are mostly focused, I say, on the geometrical information. So what geometry you can get and how you can use it versus the, I say, the visual, the presentation, the marketing aspect of this data. But step by step, our quality would improve. So you can see that maybe some of you might use it for like virtual tours as well, though it's not something that we are actively targeting by ourselves. I also see like a question again, speaking about multiple scans. Do you need to scan like every 3 feet or something like this that you usually do with 360 cameras? The good news is that no, you don't need to be that dense in capturing. And right now, because there's like a human involved when we stitch those CAD models together, they can understand just by looking at the space and manually kind of like aligning this CAD models together, how they should be aligned. At the same time, we are moving towards being able to stitch multiple scans into single mesh altogether as well. But even in this case, we have something special for you in the future, which would not require you to scan that dense. So you will be still able to scan just like usually 1 or 2 spins per room.
I see a number of people asking about file formats. So between both the scan and the different CAD options. So for the scan, the reprocessed mesh after it goes through cloud reprocessing can be exported as a OBJ file. So someone asked if you can bring that into Unity. The answer is yes, you can. That will include texture as well. On the Scan to CAD output side, we have 3 main formats, 2D, which is going to include a PDF of the floor plan. It's going to include a 2D DWG and a 2D SKP file. There is a SketchUp output, which is going to include SKP, DWG, and DAE. And then there's our Revit output, which includes RVT, IFC, and DWG.
Speaking about format and what you can do with this data, so once again, you own this data and you feel free to modify it the way you want it. So if you would like to take the scan and, for example, clean it up, you know, like remove some parts of the scan that do not belong or didn't reconstruct well, you can definitely do that. The same if you use the CAD model for SketchUp and Revit. Many of our customers actually use it for visualizing changes. So they do change this 3D models, like removing walls or adding walls or changing textures or adding items. So it's up to your creativity how you would use those scans and those CAD models. And I see like a couple of maybe follow-up questions related to like scanning, like connected areas, scanning behind objects, and so on. So basically, our SLAM technology is actually not limited to standing on the same spot and spinning around yourself. So for example, if you try our Canvas app, which requires like a depth camera or a LiDAR embedded in the iPad, the capture experience is different there. You can freely walk around the space and capture like behind the objects in some like hard to reach areas and so on. The reason why we decided to go this like spin path for Canvas Home is that we see that in many cases, the app will be used by consumers, and our practice has shown that for consumers, which probably just use it, you know, once, it might be harder to like scan the space by walking around the space, and it's easier for them to just stand on the same spot and spin around themselves. That is especially true when it comes to more complex spaces, such as, for example, when you have a kitchen and living room connected, then we see that consumers don't actually understand how to better walk through the whole space to capture it. And if you say just do a spin here and a spin in another room, that's easier. But from the technology standpoint, we don't have limitations to scan only by standing on the same spot. So we can see in the future if it will be required, I say, relaxing this UX for capturing and allow you to do what we already allow you to do in Canvas, basically walking freely in the room and scanning some occluded areas. I also see like
about interiors versus exteriors. Basically, will this work outdoors?
Yeah, so basically in case of Canvas Home, we do not rely on any like active depth camera, any infrared light or something like that. So usually outdoors has a lot of natural textures, which would allow us to extract like a pretty good geometry. The only issue with outdoors is just the size. So it's given that you're at the moment limited to basically one spin, you cannot see, for example, the whole house from the one spin. Again, you can do multiple spins and we can join to the CAD model. But as soon as we have this ability to merge the scans as well, it will be even easier. So the short answer to scanning exterior is yes, you can scan the exterior, and you can scan even like larger exterior areas, for example, the facade of your house, and we will join it in the CAD model. And if you're looking to get like a exterior 3D scan, that's coming. I also see I also see a question about whether a Canvas Home app works with iPad Pro. So yes, it does work with iPad Pro, but at the moment it doesn't use the LiDAR camera in the iPad Pro. It only uses like the regular camera. If you'd like to utilize your LiDAR camera in iPad Pro, which we definitely recommend because it's a great tool to get you more accurate data and more robust scanning, definitely check out Canvas app, not the Canvas Home app, but Canvas app. Just recently, last month, we have released support for iPad Pro with LiDAR for Canvas. And if we look into the future, We see that Apple step by steps opens up the ability for developers like Occipital to get access to this LiDAR data and to use our proprietary SLAM versus AR kit, so we can get even better results by merging our technologies with the input from Apple devices, including LiDAR. So in the future, for example, when the iPhone 12 is released, we see that Canvas Home step by step will utilize more and more data from LiDAR and other sensors on the devices.
There's a question in here about scanning objects with Canvas Home.
So at the moment, Canvas Home assumes that you're scanning kind of like inside out versus outside in. So it assumes that you're standing on the spot and spins around yourself. It doesn't, we do not assume this when we track your movement, but when we reconstruct the space, we have this assumption. We also have the assumption that you are scanning some like man-built environment, so either an interior or an exterior. So it has some, distinguished elements such as planes, lines, right angles, and so on. And many of our like machine learning algorithms have been trained on such kind of data. That's why at the moment we do not provide ability to scan objects. And feel free to check out some other solutions which are maybe more about augmented reality cloud or something like this, which allow you to scan like a wider variety of objects. They might be a better fit for you at the moment if we speak about objects, but if you would like to scan a space, that's probably the best solution. I see a question about basically this like what we call B2B2C workflow, where a business wants to send their app to the client. The client does the scan, but then the business decides whether they want scan to CAD conversion or not. And that's like a very viable question. So we very shortly will give you this ability through our web portal. So in the web portal, you can already see all your like orders history, and very soon you will be able to see all your uploaded scans. And very soon, it's I say a matter of weeks, you will be able to order Scan to CAD from the web portal. It will allow you to do exactly what you have described, to basically choose by yourself which scans you would like to convert and pay for, and which not. So usually, I say it's a pretty common request. People who are working in this like home improvement industry, they might get like quite a few leads, but not all the leads are getting converted to customers. So they can use just the scan, which is like very cheap to get the basic understanding of the space and maybe pull out some simple basic measurements. And that might be enough for them to start the conversation with a potential client. And as soon as they qualify this client, they can actually invest a little bit more in creating like a CAD model, which they can use for design, actual planning, quoting, and so on. At the moment, it's still like not an issue. So if you start working with us now, you can just email to us, I would like to convert the scan, and we'll convert it for you. But very soon it will be like a self-served option.
There's a question about scanning empty rooms and how well Canvas Home will handle that kind of environment.
Yeah, it's a great question. Actually, the room that I'm sitting in is like pretty empty, so it has like blank walls, and it works pretty well with such spaces because we're not relying only on like photogrammetry, but we also ingest quite a bit of like machine learning and some assumptions about the space, so we can reconstruct it better even if it's empty. And give me a second, I will share like how my like empty room looks like, to give you like particular example. While I'm doing this, maybe you can guys answer a couple more questions, and then I'll get back to this.
So a handful of people have asked about pricing. So the Scan To CAD pricing is the exact same for now, while Canvas Home is in beta. We haven't made a final call on what things are going to look like once we come out of beta, but at least for right now, we're keeping things the same. That varies from 15 to 39 per scan, depending on what output you're choosing for Scan To CAD. If you're just looking for the reprocessed mesh, then that's $3 per scan, but we've been looking at different kind of unlimited all-you-can-eat plans for reprocessing as well. And as Anton mentioned, for beta users, we're going to be giving some freebies for people to try stuff.
Yeah, and you should be able to see my screen now, so you can see the room that I'm currently sitting in. So you can see that it has like a lot of blank walls, basically with almost no details there, and like a blank ceiling, and it worked out like pretty well. So you can see that the walls are positioned and reconstructed properly. They're close to flat, parallel with like right angles. So in general, it works pretty well in empty spaces. There might be definitely some challenging situations with like very empty spaces, but like, you know, non-ordinary complex geometry, some like curved walls or like sloped walls, vaulted ceilings and so on, that might be a little bit more challenging, but in general, it works pretty well, I would say. And from the technology perspective, I'm actually very excited and amazed how well it works on empty spaces, because I remember that even like a few years ago, that was like a super huge challenge that, yes, like you can apply photogrammetry to a lot of things, but when it comes to interiors, it basically fails just because there is not enough data. And by being able to understand the semantics of the space, to understand that it's not just like a pixel, but it's a pixel belonging to a wall, and the wall is like vertical, and the adjacent walls are perpendicular, and so on and so on. You can actually do like great job and extract much more information from visual data versus when you just rely on this and treat this like as pixels.
Might be worth re-answering about the SDK, because there's a handful of questions that have come through later about when, if, how much, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, so SDKs in our like product roadmap, there is no particular timeline or pricing that we can disclose at the moment. The SDK would allow you to integrate this ability to capture spaces and get scans in your own app. And then you can build functionality on top of it. I say to build the right SDK, the right product for you, we definitely need to understand what exactly would you like to see in this SDK, what exactly you would like to build on top, what exactly you would like to access inside SDK, and what could be left as a like black box. So if you are interested in this, definitely reach out to us, and we'll be happy to chat in more details. I also see a question about the new iOS. I'm not sure that I have understood this correctly, but basically for like maybe everyone's knowledge, there is a new iOS update, iOS 14, which gives developers more access to LiDAR data. So it still doesn't give you access to like the very, very raw measurements, but it still gives you the access of, I said, the depth map on which Apple generates on per frame basis versus the whole like mesh, which was like a black box just recently in ARKit. And that allows us to use this like more raw data together with our proprietary SLAM to be able to generate even better scans in an even more controllable fashion. So that's something that we are working on. There's a question about like lighting conditions and are there like any limitations in terms of maybe scanning darker spaces or like do you need like bright light and so on. So we have some like limitation in terms of the maximum exposure that we allow, just because if you have too high exposure and you move with like normal speed, you will see some blurring and rolling shutter effects, which will negatively impact the quality of reconstruction and the accuracy. So we limit it to a degree where these effects are like negligible. That's why the space should be, I would say, like normally lit, but it's fine if it's a little bit on the darker side, because maybe your images will be more noisier, but they will still have enough information for us to extract the right data. At the same time, there should be, like I say, some light in the space. So if you are capturing a room without light at night, that won't work. So we rely on images. So we need to see some like details in the images to be able to convert them to a 3D geometry.
I see some more questions about when to use Canvas versus using Canvas Home. We talked about that a little bit before, but it's definitely an important topic, and I see a lot of Canvas customers in here, so I want to make sure that we address that one really thoroughly. There's no either or. It's not I'm going to use Canvas Home or I'm going to use Canvas. They both have their strengths and their weaknesses. So the Canvas app itself that uses structure sensor or the LiDAR sensor on the iPad Pros, generally going to be the best choice for on-site scanning for professionals that are visiting sites repeatedly, day in, day out, or just very frequently, because it's going to give you higher accuracy, it's going to give you a higher level of detail, and if you are doing that kind of job repeatedly, then it's going to make sense to invest in the extra hardware. If you just want an easy access point for trying 3D scanning out, Canvas Home is going to be a really easy way for you to do that. But more importantly, there's no hardware barrier. You can just download the app and start scanning, which means that you can have your client or someone who maybe isn't a client, but a collaborator that's in another location that you can't get access to. They can just download the Canvas Home app, start scanning right away, no calibration, no assembly, no anything, and send you the data. So it's really about the accessibility is what Canvas Home offers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I also say a question, what is the smallest space we can scan using Canvas Home? It's a great question. So actually we do have quite a few of customers in bathroom remodeling space. And as you understand, bathrooms could be pretty tiny sometimes. So I don't have the exact like data of how small the space is, but I would say if you can get inside the space as a human and you can like spin around yourself in the space, probably will be able to scan it. Scanning the smaller space might be a little bit challenging, especially if they don't have, you know, like too many details. For example, if it's like a tiny bathroom and the walls are like blank white. But in this case, there are like a couple of options what you can do. First of all, instead of scanning kind of spinning around yourself, you can back up from the wall and basically more like walk around the perimeter, looking at the center of the space. In this case, you will see a larger field of view in each image, and it will give us more data to track and more data to do the 3D reconstruction. But also, since when you capture those like areas with like blank walls, there is not much information on those like blank walls. So you can definitely scan just around them. So if you scan the area where the wall meets the floor or where the wall meets the ceiling, and you just miss the blank areas and they will be left as like holes in the scan, that's totally fine. It doesn't matter for your understanding of the space, and it doesn't matter if we convert it to Scan to CAD, because we can understand that this like missing area is a wall, and given that there is a human involved, that's not a problem. So in general, I would say that while scanning smaller spaces might require you to know some tips and tricks, that's definitely possible. I also see a question about, do we estimate the material properties so we can enable relighting? We do not at the moment, and usually the customers who are interested in, like I say, changing the space, they're usually changing this like in a more drastic fashion versus relighting. So in this case, they usually use a CAD model and they apply like totally different like textures and materials to give a new look to the space. At the same time, if you are speaking more about, I say, visual effects applications or gaming applications or VR, AR applications, then probably you can take the scan and then manually apply some materials to it to do the relighting.
A handful of people have asked about getting access to sample data. So I think that's an action item for us to follow up and share some sample scans and sample CAD models generated from Canvas Home.
Mm-hmm. I'm looking through like remaining questions, but I believe we have covered the absolute majority of those. Am I right?
I think so. One other note is I just dropped our email address into the chat. And so if anyone has questions about Canvas Home, about Canvas, about any of the stuff that we talked about, just drop us a line at that email address, and all of us will basically see it.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Right.
Cool. So I'd like to thank everyone for your continuous support and your patience. I'm glad that you have joined our list of people interested in Canvas Home back in February, and several months after that, you're still excited about that, and you have found time to join the webinar in the middle of the day. So thank you very much for that. So just to remind about the next step after the webinar, we're going to send you like a very short form that will only take you like a couple of minutes to fill in. And after that, a few days after you fill in the form, we will send you a promo code which you can use in the app, and it will give you some freebies so you can test the app completely free. And our main goal is to learn from you and hear from you how you would like to utilize this technology for your personal goals or for your business purposes. So if you have anything else to tell us or to ask us, definitely drop us a line at support@canvas.io.
Yeah. Echo everything that Anton just said. Super excited to see the interest and the questions, and especially seeing so many Canvas customers in here as well that are interested in more products from us.
All right. So thanks everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day. Stay safe. Bye-bye.
Bye everyone.